I see real problems oftentimes working with general contractors who only do new home construction. It
Right.
is a totally different set of rules. New home construction is permitted. I mean, they're all permitted by the local offices, but ADUs are really, the tone is set by the state
Yep.
and just executed by the local, whereas new home construction is set by the locality.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. This is From Dirt to Doorknob, where we talk about a couple different parts of the building industry and what's kind of incorporated with, feasibility, finance, construction, and all the moving parts that come with building an ADU or a home or multifamily units. Here in San Diego, we are fortunate to have Meredith Munger here with us. She has been a big partner with us and for us, for our clients, finding lending options. Because as you know, one of the first things that kills a project is money, or not having it, or not getting access to it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Do you want to tell a little bit about yourself and kind of your story, how you got started in financing?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working in the mortgage industry much like you guys were working in real estate. And, I reached a point at 2016, 2017 where I'm like, all these buyers are going after the same houses and there's just not enough. And the prices are going up and up and up and up. And the math, my always saying is math doesn't lie.
Right.
And when you look at the cost of buying here in San Diego or anywhere in Southern California, you're buying at like 800 a square foot. And then you got the people who are like, well, I could buy at 500. But then you've got to rehab that crappy property, right? And you're back up to 800 per square foot.
Yep.
Whereas you can build for as little as $200 a square foot on a really big project, or $400 per square foot on a really small project,
Yep.
sometimes even more. It's a fraction. It's not even close.
Not even close.
Right? So when the ADU laws came into play in 2017, I jumped on that. And I love helping homeowners, families, young first-time home buyers house hack their way to passive income and prosperity.
Awesome. Yeah. That's, one of the biggest things I think we would like to cover on this podcast, particularly, is, you mentioned when you first came in, the two F's of realizing or finding out if you can do a project: feasibility and finance.
Right.
Feasibility is, finding out, working with a designer or an architect to find out if you can build what you want to build on your property, what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's the code. And San Diego is very diverse in the sense that every zip code or every different municipality has their own little rules, their own little laws, their own codes that you have to abide by. So doing a feasibility study or talking to someone who actually understands the code in your area is a key component. But then once you do that, and you're like, great, yes, I can build what I want to build. How am I going to pay for it, right?
Yes.
I don't know a lot of people that have $500,000 sitting in the bank ready to just throw at a construction project. So lending and funding, it does play a big key factor in the construction process. What is like the first step for someone who's looking for funding, or what type of questions do you feel like are important for them to ask when they reach out to you?
Absolutely. The first step you want to do so if you guys have that initial call, you look on Google Maps, figure out, okay, we might be able to build this. Let's go out, visit the site. Before you go out, you want to schedule a call with me, and it's free and it's just pure strategy for two reasons. One, we need to figure out how much of a loan could you qualify for. Most people think that construction loans are some random thing and it's based on future value and future rental income. No, they're a first mortgage, and you may not want to refinance your first mortgage. And the number one challenge we face is debt to income ratio. And that, in other words, we legally have to prove, do you have the ability to repay? And we're not always allowed to factor in future rental income to qualify you on the income. Now, you and I know that this is a good idea, but if we're not doing an expensive construction or renovation loan, we got to hash this through.
Right.
The second thing that we do is critical to design, right? Most people think, well, I want to optimize rental income, and so I'm going to build this huge 3-bedroom ADU in my backyard. Well, you're actually maybe optimizing the number of kids running around through your backyard, banging up your brand new home, right? So that's part of the ROI we're going to do because, for example, in North Park, right, you can build a 3-bedroom ADU that might rent for $5,000, $6,000, okay, but by contrast, in the same space for almost the same budget, you can build 3 1-bedrooms and rent them for $3,000 a piece.
Right.
That's $9,000.
Right.
Now, conversely, you can now sell off ADUs, and then we got to run. That's a totally different estimate.
Yep.
In that same project, oftentimes a 3-bedroom house in North Park is going to sell for 2.5. Whereas the 1-bedroom condos are going to maybe sell for 400, 500.
Right.
So then if that's the case, that's your optimal return on investment. And we run that over a 10-year project. So by the time you guys get out there, your client is now armed with information. Number one, this is my budget, don't build above that, which helps you guys,
Absolutely.
right? Otherwise, it's a total freaking guess.
Yes.
And the second thing is, I want to design 3 1-bedrooms, or I want to design a 1-bedroom knowing I'm going to sell it off. Because don't you guys have a lot different approach if you're selling off a unit versus renting a unit?
Well, it really depends. Yeah, as far as like the construction goes, it really depends on what the end goal is for the project, right? If it's a house because it's so expensive to buy land here in San Diego, the dirt is more expensive than anything else. Right. If the goal is to build a house that your family can move into, your kids can live in, or build a legacy property, yeah, we're probably putting in higher end finishes. The cost goes up a little bit.
Right.
If it's for rental, we're probably looking to use durable materials like luxury vinyl plank, tile, quartz countertops that don't stain or burn easy.
Right.
And so like there's a kind of more of like a mid-range approach.
Right.
And then if your ultimate goal is to flip it and sell it, where do you want the price point to be, right?
Yes.
So if you're going to put in the nicer finishes, you're going to put in the marble countertops, the cantina doors, the big sliders, that's because you're trying to get a higher dollar amount on the sale.
Totally. Yeah. But it also raises a question of like, well, do we need to put in all new electrical panels, or can we just do a mini split? Or should we do solar and share utility costs? Or, I need those separated so the renter's paying. All those kinds of discussions, like before you spend time on money, right, you figure out what you're designing to first because that's your goal.
Exactly. Yeah. So asking those questions, and like you said, information is money. You are going to save so much time and so much money if you're asking the right questions, if you're talking to the right people that are trusted in the industry, that can at least set very clear and realistic expectations for you before you get too far down the process. One of the projects like I was talking to you about a little earlier was, we had a client that came in, he had plans that were stamped and approved by the city over in El Cajon, and his architects had designed this 1,200 square foot ADU and placed on a flat lot close to utilities. We're probably looking at about a $400,000 project. It was a 1,200 square foot on top of a 3-car garage, so it was a little bit more than just like a single story. But the architect and engineer had placed it in a hillside where we would have to dig out, move dirt, recompact, build a 20 by 18 foot retaining wall.
Which are ugly. And not only that, but the location in the hillside was also 300 yards away from any utility tie-ins, which were also across the street, so it would have been right-of-way work. So our price actually for the bid ended up coming out about $1.2 million. So it killed the project. And instead of trying to finance that, which the ROI, even if it was for family, just didn't make sense, he ended up buying his neighbor's house for $900,000, and his family moved in next door. But he could have saved himself a year and a half in permitting and $50,000 in permitting.
$50,000 in permitting and design.
Maybe
fees,
more.
Maybe more.
Yeah.
So
I see that all the time, and which is why I really appreciate your model, because I happen to know that you guys work directly with the architects and even draftsmen, and that you're big on design build companies that, number one, specialize in ADUs, and number two, are very focused on value engineering. 100%. I saw the same thing with an architect who, on a little 400 square foot square, ADU had done multi-tiered roofs that were beautiful, but it was going to cost $100,000 for the contractor to hand build those suckers.
Yeah.
They swapped it out for standard trusses for $10,000. I mean,
Yep.
it was ridiculous.
Yes.
Right.
And we love working with all the architects and our partners that we work with, but we run across a couple that we're like, you really love to design, and your designs are beautiful, but you're not keeping costs in mind, and those conversations aren't even really being had with their client,
Right.
which is a shame because then they get to our front door, we put a bid out, and it's way over budget, and they can't even qualify for the loan amount that they need, and so. I hate to see that happen, and I think you were one that mentioned 75% of permits that go through the city building department don't get built.
Right. I call it designing a champagne castle only to find out you're on a beer budget.
Yep.
And you've designed this huge unit, again, bunch of kids running through your backyard, but you don't qualify to build it.
Yeah.
The other thing I see about the importance of a design build firm specializing in ADUs is I see real problems oftentimes working with general contractors who only do new home construction. It is a totally different set of rules. New home construction is permitted. I mean, they're all permitted by the local offices, but ADUs are really, the tone is set by the state and just executed by the local, whereas new home construction is set by the locality. I saw a situation where the draftsman was very particular. They had a detached ADU that was right up against the property line, and they said, do not knock this one wall down, right? You are to keep, it's a radial, I get it, don't knock it down.
Right.
Contractor said, nah, screw it, knocked it down.
It all needs to go.
And then the inspectors come out and say, whoa.
Start over.
You start over because you've now ruined the grandfatherness of the location by knocking down that wall. We now have to move the entire foundation in and away from the setbacks by 4 feet, redo utilities, re-permit everything.
Yep.
Oh, man.
It puts the project on hold because that whole time,
Right.
after demo's already been done, you have to go back to the drawing board and you have to start over.
Right.
And so your house or your property is just sitting there, no work's getting done.
Right.
And time is money.
Yep.
Just as much as money is money. So I hate to see that kind of stuff happen, but unfortunately it is very common. And so that's why I think it is so key to educate yourself, watch the podcast, learn a little bit more about the process and what's involved. I wanted to shift a little bit and talk about how you can fund a project, and what if you're locked into like a really low first mortgage rate?
Yeah, most of my clients aren't refinancing. And why would you if you've got a 2 or 3% rate, right? It makes, most often it makes no sense. The short answer is with my bank, I moved to my bank because we've got more than 400 loan products. And if you go to a big bank or credit union, they've got one HELOC option. They don't do construction. They all this stuff. And it's easier to tell you, oh, you're not qualified than to say, oh, we don't do those loans, but my competitor over here does them. Right. Because they don't want to lose your checking and savings accounts, which is where they really make money.
Of course.
So we have literally almost 50 different second mortgage products. I was just telling you earlier, we have a no income HELOC.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Is the rate a little higher? Yeah. But even if rates never changed in their lifetime, they were still going to cash flow a minimum of $1,000 a month. Yeah. But once they have that income, it's a temporary loan. You switch it out. You use it for the construction for the 6 months of construction, and then you get the income, and then you refinance to a classic fixed rate second mortgage, and we waive our lender fees on those second refinances.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's such a cool option, and I don't think a lot of people know about that, and that's a possibility. There's creative ways, and what's really cool is like I've talked to and we've worked with a lot of different lenders, you included, and the traditional bank loans, they're pretty archaic and outdated, but they work and the banks make their money off it. So they're not really incentivized to make any changes or get creative, with their lending. So what I've loved is, especially in the last 5 years, I've seen so many different creative ways for loans to get processed and approved, and people are building, and we're really trying to, we're here in San Diego, we are in a housing crisis. We are more than 4 years behind the quota of new homes and ADUs or habitable space that we're supposed to have here already.
Right.
Which is why you see certain streets lined with people that don't have homes. And
Right.
So like our 10-year goal by 2032, we're trying to build 1,000 doors.
Yeah.
Just to help with that housing crisis.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a way to fund projects, a lot of those, like you said, 75% of them are not going to get built. So
Right.
we need people like you, and we need lenders and builders that are knowledgeable about their product, can educate the general public on how they can build, even with a no income
Right.
HELOC.
Right.
So there are options, there are ways to get creative, and that's really cool. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and let me be clear, I would not leave my client in that situation. That's part of the goal, is not just a, hey, here's pushing a loan to get it built. Like, what's your exit strategy? Right? Are you going to end up renting with a low income classic 30-year fix that really cash flows? Because if you're only making $100 a month, why bother?
Right.
Right? I want you making thousands and thousands of dollars per month.
Right.
Math doesn't lie. It's for me to provide those options to you and do it. But I love, honestly, half the fun is just the passion. I have a borrower here, a client here in San Diego. She bought her first home with me when she was still at SDSU.
Wow.
Yeah, in La Mesa. She did a flat purchase, a standard purchase. Then we did something called a renovation refinance, and we built an ADU for her. And she was renting to all her college roommates.
Smart. Okay.
We then did a HELOC on that property, went and bought a second property. She chose to buy, it was like a 5 or 6 bedroom house.
Wow.
With a basement and a detached garage.
Smart.
And yes, she bought it. We tried to do a renovation purchase simultaneously with a standard purchase because we were on a time crunch. She found this great property. It was priced at $877. Okay. It was priced at $825. The appraiser gave it a value at $877. Wow. And the future value, because she could do up to 4 ADUs, which she's just now finishing, is $1.682 million.
I would say that's a good investment.
She's 24 years old, driving a Mercedes.
Okay.
She's cash flowing net on the first house, $10,000 a month. The second house, she's living in it payment free. She's Airbnb a couple the size. She's netting $15,000 to $20,000 a month, and she's 24 years old.
It's never too young, never too old. It's never too late. So great example. I love that story because it really can show how even in an expensive city like San Diego, you can still build wealth and passive income through investment if you do it the right way and you're smart about it. I love that story. I think that's great, and I want to do the same thing. So, wanted to talk a little bit about you being one of the founding members of the Casita Coalition and what sparked you to become involved with that initially.
Yeah.
And what has that kind of done for your presence in the industry, and what benefits do you think you got out of that?
So, little known secret, I spent the first 10 years of my adult life working on Capitol Hill and in Washington, D.C. So I have a policy streak. And when we got into ADUs, it became immediately apparent that the permit guidelines and the loan guidelines aren't, efficient. They don't jibe with each other. And this explains why, for example, appraisals are often low on ADUs, while there's all these weird guidelines. For the last 80 years in mortgage finance, an ADU, or accessory dwelling unit, has never been a permanent residential space. Right. Because in their worldview, remember, these are the green eye shade guys back in Washington, D.C., and their view is if it's a rental unit and a permanent unit, you would call it an R unit, a residential zoned unit. Why would you ever call it an ADU? An ADU is like a pool house or a guest house, right? Yes. And so these guys back in D.C. are going, what are these crazy Californians doing, right? And so you get an appraisal guideline where the appraisers are explicitly told you may not factor in the square footage of the ADU into future value. So I got 2-bedroom ADUs in the middle of San Diego given $0 value. Yeah. We worked with, in 2019, formed a specialized appraisal panel trained by the National Appraisal Institute, and we only use those panels so we get that full value. But working on aligning the policies from financing, local policies, also have a passion about streamlining permits here, because permits are arguably the most expensive cost, and design are the most expensive cost. And it's not just the fees, it's the carrying costs of the loan, because you got to pay on that loan sometimes every month until that guy stamps your damn permits. And they don't realize that. But I literally have been out training at the American Planners Association going, guys, you're the problem. And they're like, what? What do you mean? We're just trying to make it environmentally friendly. We're just trying to make it. No. I want you out of that, right? The homeowners will make it nice. The homeowners have an incentive to make it environmentally friendly. They're following the rules. Like, why wouldn't I want trees in my yard, right? So, so that policy, that efficiency. And then there's finally what I call the manufacturing process between the designers, the finance, and the builders. We have to have a smooth process. So from 2016, we were looking at like a 1 to 3 year permit time on an ADU, right? And probably $50,000. And, 6 months to build. Now we're down as close as, how fast can you get permits done?
Depending on how responsive your architect or designer is, you're probably looking at anywhere in the city of San Diego between 4 and 8 months, depending on the project. If it's multifamily, add 4 months. If it's a custom home, add 4 months. So it goes up and up. But I would say the fastest I've seen a turnaround on an ADU is about 4 months.
Yeah. So compare that. And by the way, I did an article several years ago that a new construction home averaged 3 years at $100,000 in just permit costs, just the right to put the shovel in the ground before you even started work. That's why housing is so expensive, and I see it in my client's paycheck. I see it. I helped a young man with a young family buy land in Fallbrook and a mobile home, and county's charging him $35,000 to put freaking sidewalks around a dirt road. Like, seriously, guys? This kid can't, he's taking care of his family. Right? So, it gets me fired up.
Yeah, for sure. No, and I love it. And you're a big advocate for, policy and being involved in that. And I always love how involved you are. And, we both are members of the BIA, and we meet and talk about all the other nuances that can complicate a build. I'm sitting on the subcommittee for the SDG&E panel, and like making sure that all the things that can cause delays and accrue holding costs because we're waiting and waiting and waiting on a certain department to approve something, that could kill a project, right? So
what you guys are doing on that Building Industry Association Council with SDG&E, and I've just sat in for kicks and giggles, but to have them have that aha moment and say, wow, we didn't know that this little issue was costing you a $10,000 panel change. We're going to fix that and drop the cost to $750. Game changer.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool stuff. And sometimes it's just two different entities actually having a conversation. Getting in the same room and saying, hey, there are some broken parts to this machine that we are trying to build together. How do we fix them? And so it is really cool to get some very intelligent minds, very experienced minds, all in the same room to problem solve. It's been pretty fun to be a part of and just watch sometimes. Just be like, wow, that's a really good point. I never thought of that. So I'm constantly learning. I think everyone has a chance to speak and learn from everyone else. Even if I would consider them a competitor, we're still very friendly, and we all have a common goal. And that's what I think is really cool about what we're doing there.
And part of our goal is to make sure that our curated group, and as a lender, this is what's important to me. My occupational hazard is bad contractors. And I see it all the time because it's always the low bid guy, right? I had a client come in trying to build a 2-story, 2-bedroom each in Los Angeles, and the guy Every other bid came in at 400 to 450, and that guy came in at 300, and I'm like, no, not happening. And sure enough, I walked them through. I showed the screen online. He's a septic guy. He's never done structural engineering. He's never even built a home. And I'm like, dude, they're like, you just saved me 150,000 easy.
Easy, if not double that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because then you got to go up and fix what he screwed up. Right. So it's important to me to keep a curated group of lenders that does believe in the growth mindset, that's constantly working with the permit guys and everybody else in the industry to keep your education up, but also build rapport with the permit guys so you can problem solve.
Yep.
Right?
That's the goal.
Yeah.
You got to work as a team. Otherwise, the permit times are going to keep going up and buildings are going to continue to go down. And we're going to fall even more behind than we already are.
Right.
Wanted to talk a little bit about what do you feel like the number one mistake you see San Diego homeowners making when they try to do it themselves on financing?
I'm going to go back to the number one mistake homeowners make is they don't figure out the finances first. And by the way, that doesn't mean you have to do a loan now. Oftentimes we do it much, much later when you're ready. Because it goes back to 75% of ADU permits never get built. And that's almost always because they weren't pre-approved for a loan. Right. Additionally, I've had probably 5 clients, just a handful, but nonetheless, who I couldn't get pre-approved up front. They did it anyway. Mm-hmm. And they put it on initially 0% credit cards, $150,000, $200,000 in credit cards that are now at 32%.
Right.
And even if we paid all of that off with the rental income, they still don't qualify.
Yep.
Right?
Wow.
And they are now selling those houses. Mm-hmm. And they've just wasted all that time and money.
They just put themselves into debt.
Oh my God, horrible debt. Like sweating at night, staring at the ceiling debt, right?
Yes.
And that is why the financing is so important up front.
Yes. Got to figure out what you can afford so that you can design with that in mind.
Yeah.
And then make sure that you're talking to a contractor who can give you realistic costs, not I can do it for $150,000 less. And that's what I always say is like, we go up against, I always say to everybody, get multiple bids. It's always good to see what your options are. But at the end of the day, when I get told, someone's cheaper by 20%, I'm like, you're more than welcome to roll the dice on that. I feel very confident that the cost I'm giving you is the cost it's going to take to build this project, whether we do it or someone else does.
Right.
We're just going to do it with no change orders or very little change orders. The other guy is going to maybe change order you for twice the deficit amount, right? So
right. And what I tell my clients is, all you contractors, you get your materials from the same prices.
Right.
You get your labor from a lot of the same crews, or you've really honed your crews for that efficiency. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're getting magical unicorn materials.
Lumber deliveries,
Right, exactly. And then it comes down to expertise and knowledge, right?
Of course.
And rapport and happy clients.
Yep.
Yeah.
Raving fans is what we like to call them.
I love it.
I guess first step, you're saying it would be a good idea for anyone who's thinking about building to figure out what they qualify for first. Mm-hmm. So what does that start with, or what does that process look? Is that a phone call to you? Yeah.
So, and feasibility is fine because you do need to get a sense. I get people out in the middle of nowhere, and it turns out you look at their permit, their zoning rules, and like, no, you really can't build anything.
Yeah.
It's pretty rare, but occasionally you get it.
I've seen it.
Yeah, exactly. So the second, and can be a phone call. Just as simple as a phone call. Yeah. The second is the financing. Right. Even if we do the loan later, it's and I spreadsheet everything because again, math doesn't lie. Yep. And we work 7 days a week, my team and I, so that you can have a 30-minute free strategy call and just run the numbers. Does this make sense? Does this pencil out? Is it even worth my time?
Yeah.
And we almost always find out it is, but with certain,
stipulations
approaches.
And of course.
If you do it this way, not so much. But if you do it that way, holy cow.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about your approach. I think
Right.
that's key and so fundamental in making sure that you have a successful project, whether it's for family, whether it's for rental, whether you're trying to turn it around and sell it.
Right.
And so I think that like these are all really good points, and I'm excited that you're on here with us and you get to share a little bit of your story. Wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk about aduloans.net.
Yeah.
And what that's all about and how you're a part of that.
Absolutely. So I'm the team leader and chief loan officer for aduloans.net, and we're really a brand of cross-country mortgage, which is the largest mortgage bank in America, and we're the largest ADU lender in the state of California, but we do work in all 50 states. We also do new construction, we do commercial lending, we do all kinds of things, but we got that moniker. And why that matters is because when you have more than 400 loan options to choose from, you're going to find a solution, right? And with the expertise that we do, like we're not built like a purchase lender where they're like, they get a client, they close the next month.
Right.
We almost never close the next month.
Right.
It can be years, and that's okay because that's my job, to be there for them and handhold them until success. Right. And that's also why we waive our lender fees on future finances, because I want you to think about that long term and not stress about what's next.
Right.
What's next.
Right. I love that. And I don't see a ton of that, so it's really cool that you guys handle yourselves that way.
Yeah.
And it really just goes to show that you guys care about your clients and you want to see them be successful. And at the end of the day, when they have a good experience and they have that passive income at 24, making what, $25,000 a month?
Where was I?
Yeah, I know. What was I doing? I was 24. I was in a band somewhere.
Right.
But it's cool because you have those success stories, and guess what? Next time they want to do a loan or they have another project, they're coming back to you. Right?
Yeah.
It's creating those happy clients, those raving fans, that they're always going to say your name when someone asks, hey, I'm looking for a loan. What should I do? Right?
Absolutely.
And I love having you as a resource and a partner in this industry. I really appreciate you coming on here with us. Anything else you want to share or promote? Anything coming up?
No, other than we've got a building industry association. Watch out for our ADU fairs. I know if you haven't signed up for his newsletter, he will keep you posted so you can physically go see, touch, come to the incredible design studio, because it really does matter. And people who've never seen an ADU, I remember walking into my first ADU and I'm like, I could never live in a 400 square foot. And then you walk in, you're like,
this is cozy.
The storage covers everything, and this could be nice. Yeah. And so you start to understand what that might look like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just to get eyes on it and understand the whole process, and going and actually seeing some of these spaces is important, especially if you're thinking about building, because you may think you need 1,000 square feet.
Yeah.
But you might not qualify for that.
Right.
Go take a look at some of the properties and be like, you know what? I could do 2 bedrooms in a 750 square foot ADU.
Oh, easy.
And learn and educate yourself. And I think that's kind of the fundamental thing that we're preaching in this podcast today is do your due diligence, do your homework. It takes a little bit of time up front, but it saves you a ton of hassle, a ton of time, and a ton of money on the back end. So if you are looking for lending options, over 400 options, reach out to Meredith. She'd be happy to help. We will put her information in the caption below, and we really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks.